about Dropbox culture, and more importantly, getting to know all of you, beginning with the incredible humans who are here with me on this stage. And so first, let's begin with, give yourselves a round of applause for showing up in the middle of the workday with all of the things that you could be doing. All right, wait. Hold up. All right, let's get something clear. All right. I am an African American, Caribbean, South American, New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. Those are all very loud people. And so being loud and interactive and being unapologetically yourself is a part of my culture. And so that's what I'm bringing to you. So when we say give yourselves a round of applause, right? I want you to applaud like you just walked on the moon. No, forget the moon, that's played out. Like you just walked on Mars. And here you are today, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna have a great time, because why be here and be lackluster, right? So give yourselves a round of applause for showing up today. Yes! Woo! So I want to get to know a little bit about you, but first I wanted to just share with you that one of my cousins asked me she said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, oh, I'm speaking at Dropbox. And I've had the honor and the privilege of speaking to amazing people around the world, but this is my first time hanging out with the Dropbox crew. And so my cousin said, well, you're certainly a big geek, but you're not a technical person. And so why would you be speaking at Dropbox? And I think that that's a great part of what we're talking about today, is that you don't have to be a technical person to be a person in tech. And so that's going to be a part of our conversation. And deeper than that, one of the amazing women on our panel, as we were getting to know each other in the days leading up to this, said to me, well, what made you decide to come and take part in this event, Dropbox Culture, Making Our World Better? And what I shared with her was that my work is all about helping us to stop playing small, helping us to stop hiding, and helping us to play full out in our lives. And when it comes to people like the people in this room, who are natural overachievers, natural doers, natural givers, that for us as a tribe, as a culture, we can play at a 5 in the world or a 6, and to everyone else it looks like, oh my God, you're doing so much. And we know deep down inside, I'm seeing some nodding of heads, that we're not still where we want to be or playing fully in who we are, the ways that we want to show up in the world. And I think that Dropbox, the reason why Dropbox, they are talking about, us making the world work better, is that they want you to show up fully as yourself. That is the Dropbox culture, and so we're going to get into that in a bit today. I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I want to introduce the people who are up here, and then I have a question to get to know all of you, because I think that this is a big part. Reading their bios and getting to know them was also, for me, a big part of why I chose to come to Dropbox here today. So, all right, so right here, immediately to my left, I want to introduce Jisha Jacob. You can give her a round of applause. Like she walked on Mars, people. So Jisha is a product manager on Previews, a team that builds solutions to enable seamless collaboration on content at Dropbox. Outside of work, Jisha is pursuing her master's in CS, machine learning part-time. That is awesome, Jisha.
Thank you.
So glad that you're here.
Thanks.
And next to Jisha, we have Eliza Rhee. And Eliza is a customer success manager focused on small to medium businesses. Lately, she's been daydreaming about her next ski trip, chasing her nieces and nephews, or playing music with friends. Let's give it up for Eliza Rhee. And And then right next to Eliza, we have Mel Wood, not to be confused with Elwood, but Mel Wood. Mel is a recruiting coordinator on the engineering recruiting team. She comes from a sciences background, majoring in human biology with a concentration in human health and disease, and she interned at a bio-research lab investigating the benefits of cannabinoids in college. Give it up for Mel Wood. I think that Mel got the biggest round of applause. Everyone's like, oh, the rest of you can go. Let's hear more about Mel and that research. So let's get started talking about Dropbox culture, because there's a reason why we see that so many people have been here for so long. And so I want to begin with our panelists. And I did a formal introduction of you in the beginning, but if you could introduce us to who you are, the person behind the introduction, and how that speaks to the culture of Dropbox. Let's start with you, Jisha.
Oh, sure. So I would say I'm kind of shy. I would come off a little bit cold-ish when you first meet me, but I'm deeply curious and like super interested in what most people have to say. And so I think that's kind of true for most of Dropbox. Everyone here is super collaborative and honest and kind. And yeah, that's a little bit about it.
That's awesome, awesome. And for you, Eliza?
Hi. So I think, kind of going along with what you said, Jisha, is that I think I kind of come off as a little standoffish. But it is also rooted in my shyness and my being an introvert, which is interesting because I'm in sales. But yeah, I think in a lot of ways I'm that walking contradiction between the two.
Makes sense, makes sense. And for you?
So it's funny, I just mentioned that I thought I was a little introverted and it got like shut down right away. People were like, no, you are not an introvert. I think probably something people should know about me, I consider empathy to be my strongest quality. And I've never really known what I wanted to be when I grow up or what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to help people and make a difference. As sort of generic as that sounds, it's pretty true.
That's awesome, and I don't think that that's generic at all. I think that a lot of us in this room probably feel that way. Anyone else feel like they want to help people and make a difference in the world? Yeah, you're not alone in that. And another thing is, for the people who shut her down on being an introvert, I am incredibly introverted, incredibly shy, and have dealt with anxiety and social anxiety for most of my life. And so I can completely understand. We're right here. Well, one of the things that I know that a lot of companies, the difference between current corporate culture and, even 5 or 10 years ago is that people used to pride themselves on busy work and how busy you could be, but busyness doesn't necessarily mean that anything is getting done. And I love that that has thankfully shifted. And so what are some active ways that you could take? We'll start with Eliza this time. Some active steps that you could take to cut out busy work and work better.
Okay, so busy work is a huge pet peeve of mine. So as a customer success manager focused on small to medium businesses, I really have no time for busy work. I have a book of accounts, 150 plus customers, with large teams. So one of the things that I focus on every day, every week, every month, every quarter is prioritizing my time, making sure that I quickly identify duplicative work in particular. So if I see myself filling out the same information in 5 different spreadsheets for 5 different teams, I'll usually call it out and say, hey guys, the more busy work that I do here, the less I can spend time with my customers and helping them succeed. So I'm always thinking about that.
And so just a follow-up for you, Eliza, if someone is watching this here in the room or on the live stream and they are trying to maybe cut back on busy work, what's the first step that you would recommend that they take?
Figure out what I mean, for me, it's about alignment too. So making sure that my goals and the way that I prioritize my time aligns with the goals of my team, you know, the revenue organization, and then, you know, the larger company goals. So as long as we have that alignment, I feel pretty confident in the way that I actually organize my time. But, you know, having said that, it's always just being able to respond quickly, identify, you know, problems quickly, but also be able to provide solutions. Because there's no point really in identifying the problem if you don't have something to offer, you know, in return. So.
Well said. And for you, Mel?
So on my team, our core job is really scheduling, and I mean, efficiency is probably like our number one priority. So my team is constantly just looking for ways that we can like automate. So tooling for us is something that's huge. And I think like a really good example of that, we rolled out an automated scheduling tool this year, and I think it's increased productivity by something like 30%. And what that means for my team, like when our job is scheduling, we get to work on so many more meaningful projects is what that means for us. And, you know, think about our career trajectory more, just get our foot in the door with other teams, projects, people we want to meet. So it's a really big thing for us. Tooling and automation is probably the most important thing in engineer recruiting.
And for someone who is wanting to put more systems into place, you know, in their day-to-day, how would you recommend that they begin?
I mean, probably just some due diligence and research, see what's out there, see what's being offered. There's new products, you know, being released all the time that can make you more efficient in your workflow. So yeah, I just think like investigating due diligence and finding out what's out there.
Absolutely, thank you. And for you, Jisha?
Sure. So I would say, like, as a product manager, one of our biggest forms of busy work comes in the form of meetings. We have a lot of meetings, and most of those meetings are just basically to kind of get updates on what everyone is doing. So I think there's two ways that I try to reduce, or our team tries to reduce busy work. One is being really clear on the agenda of a meeting, any pre-reads that have to go, so that 30 minutes or an hour is like super well utilized, and having very clear questions that we're trying to answer through that meeting. And then the second is like kind of asynchronous update tools. So right now our team on previews is trying to figure out the right model for using Jira, and as a result, like, we want to, you know, give the entire team visibility into what everyone's working on, so that we don't necessarily have to kind of meet kind of as rigorously around just core updates, and it can be more open discussions on problems we're solving.
That's great. And so you're finding that these are productive meetings rather than just meeting to meet like people maybe did like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a work in progress, but yes, aspirationally.
Very cool. A big part of the Dropbox initiative, in fact, it's in the EVP, the Employee Value Proposition, is we believe in making the world work better. How does that idea, the idea of making the world work better, maybe inspire you or, you know, motivate you in your overall personal goals?
Sure. I'll take that one. So I think as a PM, like, we're energized by the pain points of our customers, right? And so I personally care deeply when our customers come to us and say, like, if you could just do this one thing, it would make our team X more efficient, or it would give us, like, you know, X more credibility with our customers. And so for us, like, we want to help them. And I think what's unique about the Dropbox brand is our customers really are, like, loyal to our brand, and they want us to win, and they want us to do well. So one thing that I think, you know, inspires me to make work better, make the world work better, is, you know, solving those critical pain points so that people can be energized about the work they're doing and, like, not feel kind of core friction to just getting things done.
Nice. And for you, Eliza?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest perks of being in such a customer-facing role as a customer success manager is I actually get to see that idea become real with our customers. So it's not just an idea, but when I talk to them every day, you know, one of the cool things is sometimes they'll just come right back at me and, you know, unsolicited, and say things like, you know, I found this amazing way to use Dropbox, or, oh my God, you know, I can do this work now so much better, you know. So just working better, I see that every day with my customers. And I take those stories, which I find really inspiring, to be a little more curious, because there are definitely times where, you know, I'm not inspired, so I'll look for stories to like find some kind of inspiration. But seeing that excitement from the customers helps me be more curious about what our product can actually do, because they discover things that sometimes I don't even know. So.
That's wonderful. So you literally get to learn more about the product from the customer and see directly how they are using what you're doing. Awesome. And for you, Mel?
I think for engineer recruiting, it's sort of this, you can see this progression. Like our goal is to hire people that are hopefully going to make the next generation of Dropbox products. And so I can like see the fruition. For example, we were just chatting, like I was the first face of Dropbox when Jisha came to interview. Also Marley Spector, who's another PM here. And to see things like that. And then we had a Q&A with Drew, I think like 3 weeks ago, with Witness, who is, they're a nonprofit organization, and they help people film injustices around the world. They're a Dropbox Foundation recipient. And they mentioned a feature that is gonna help them a lot, and it's a time-coded comment. And Marley Spector was like one of the people who was instrumental in delivering that. So for me, I mean, it's hiring these people that are going to build world-class products, and just to see, like, I'm sort of the candidate experience face of Dropbox that they have, and just to see the trajectory and where they come and the things that they do and the impact they have here is sort of how I can relate to making the world better, work better, sorry.
That's beautiful. And what originally brought you to Dropbox?
This is kind of going along with that. It's an interesting story. I was working on a digital engineering team at a building material supplier. So supplying glass and metal for like commercial buildings. And we used Dropbox. We were a small self-serve team, and we won like a $350 million contract to supply glass and metal for the Washington Post. And it was like Dropbox products that we used to show all of our images, renderings, whatever. So just to see like a little facet of an industry like that was helped so much by Dropbox, I just like wonder, there's so much untapped potential for other companies to use our products.
I love that. I love hearing that. My team is under 5 people, and I have teammates in one person in the Philippines and one person in Australia. And so Dropbox, you know, is incredibly important for my business. So I love hearing about that. And Eliza, what brought you to Dropbox initially?
So, you know, I've been in tech for, this is going to totally date me, for like 20 years. So, you know, and I've seen it evolve, and I remember hearing about Dropbox way back in like 2008 or something like that. So there came a time around 2015 where I was looking for a change. I was considering a few amazing companies. So of course, like a lot of people probably have done, you know, they're Googling the company, trying to figure out like, what is this company about? You know, and during the interview process, I remember landing on a blog post published by Dropbox talking about PrideBox, which is the LGBTQ plus employee resource group at Dropbox. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going through the interview process. Gosh, this is really long. I don't think I'm going to make it through the end. But if I do, I'm going to come out at work. So having been in the workforce for, you know, nearly 20 years now, you know, I've never been out at work before. It was always something that was, you know, I left at the door. You know, my private life was my private life. And I think part of that has to do with, you know, the generation that I was part of, but I knew that, you know, Dropbox was it. When I got the offer, I was like, I'm coming out. And I'm going to join Dropbox.
That is wonderful. And I want to share with you that actually reading about your work with the ERG, with PrideBox, as I explained to the team here, was a part of me saying yes to coming here. I was like, that is badass, like a company that is like, you know, like, because there's one thing to have an EVP that says, oh, we'd like to, you know, make the world work better, but it's another thing to live it. And so I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And for you, Jisha, as the person who is newest to Dropbox here on our panel today.
Yeah, it was actually, I was in a program with Marley Spector, the person that you recruited, and her and I, you know, we hit it off. She was basically talking a lot about her work here. and she was super passionate about it and very thoughtful, and I really loved kind of her energy and like how excited she was about what she was working on. So when I was starting to look, I asked her first, and then she introduced me to her team who had the same energy and passion about what they were doing, and I was sold. I mean, the team is incredibly compelling in New York, and I love working with them, so it's been great.
Well, awesome, awesome. I would love for us to talk about collaboration and playing with teams, because that's a really important part of any work experience, and certainly here at Dropbox today we wanted to focus on collaboration and innovation as well as culture. And one of the things that I kept finding as I was doing my research on Dropbox was about collaboration and kindness, which again can sound kind of pithy and kind of, like, really? But I think that it's a really important thing to talk about, because a lot of people, if any of us have experienced a workplace without kindness, we know how important that can be. So if we could start with Mel this time, and let's talk about your experience in collaborating here, and what part, if any, does kindness play, or just the collaboration experience period here at Dropbox for you.
So I think when collaboration is sort of a core value for you, people have to be very open. We always say everyone's heard feedback is a gift. So I just think people are maybe a little bit vulnerable here, and you have to have elements of kindness if you want to have an inclusive, open, like empathetic environment. There's just no way for people to feel like they can do their best work and really be open, especially to failure, if they don't feel like they're going to receive kindness. And I think collaboration in New York, this is a very special place. Dropbox is in general, but this office in particular for me, we have so many different representation in terms of departments that there's a lot of like organic collaboration that happens here. You'll be sitting at the lunch table and you'll be with engineers and people from marketing and salespeople and marketing or product managers. So it just, it's a very easy way to sort of have casual conversations, identify problems in areas where you can work together. And on top of that, I think Dropbox hires people who are very specialized and sort of experts in their field. So the world, I think, is becoming more and more specialized, and there's just no way you have all the knowledge. There's no way that you have all the information to make the best decision about everything. So bringing all of these specializations together on top of just this kind, like organic, small, tight-knit environment in New York, it's just like a really great thing, and I think it fosters just so many wonderful ideas.
Oh, that's great to hear. And for you, Jisha, can you speak about the process of collaboration here? Was it what you were expecting it to be, or a little bit different, or your thoughts on collaboration?
Yeah, sure. We were prepping for this. I was saying, there's two words that kind of entered into my vocabulary when I came here. One was trust tree, and the other one was spicy. And like, I think, like those words were really kind of representative of like, this is a place where you can have a really shields down, honest conversation and trust that no one will judge you and this will not like reflect on you later. And it really has kind of translated to the character and the culture of like the early stage collaboration that I've engaged in at Dropbox in the first 6 months I've been here. So, our product team and our previews team in general, tries to have really shields down conversations on, what is a strategy that we're going towards? Like, does it make sense? Are we aware of the risks that we're facing? And I think I've personally appreciated that as a product manager. So I would say, like, building on like the fact that it is organic, it's also very shields down, transparent, and it has a character of openness.
Can you speak to, Jisha, how those two words are used here? Just in case someone who is unfamiliar with Dropbox culture finds their way to this video afterward.
Sure. So the trust tree comment is like, this room of 6 people or this room of 20 people, this is our trust tree. It doesn't leave this room what we're going to say. And so we'll usually preface that in that, like, whatever is said here is meant for this group and you can feel comfortable sharing it. And then spicy is really like, this may land differently in a different audience and it may be like provocative, but that's okay. We want you to say a spicy comment.
Oh, great. Awesome. And for you, Eliza, we're talking about collaboration. and your experience here, and kindness.
Right. So, I think the both of you have really kind of covered a lot of it. So I'll just reiterate some of the points that you all made. I think collaboration can exist in a lot of different cultures, but I think what makes it really successful is when you have kindness embedded in the DNA of the organization. So, I can only speak for customer success and services, which were two organizations that I've worked for at Dropbox, and I can't tell you how kindness is such an important aspect of our team. So, and with that, we feel the freedom to share, provide feedback, to ask for feedback. There isn't a day that I'm just sitting at my desk, just looking at my computer. I'm often turning to my colleague to my left, to my right, walking across the way, talk to an account executive, asking for feedback, asking questions, collaborating. But at the same time, making sure that we have something to kind of, as an outcome. Mm-hmm. So whether that be an action item, something I need to follow up on, all of that stuff. And I don't think that we would have such a successful collaborative environment without that kindness element there.
So important. And for you with customer success, absolutely. What has been the most exciting project that you've done personally here, Eliza?
Oh, so professionally, when I saw that question, I was thinking more in terms of PrideBox. So if you don't mind, I'll answer from that perspective. What I will say is that, building on the story of why I chose Dropbox, my first day at Dropbox, I walk into the New York City office and I realize PrideBox doesn't exist here. So one of the most personally exciting project that I was involved with is actually starting up a chapter here for PrideBox, the LGBTQ plus employee resource group, and helping build an environment that's welcoming to our community. So that was probably the most exciting one for me.
Pretty awesome. And for you, Mel, most exciting project that you've been involved with here?
I'm going to cheat and say 2, if that's okay.
That's okay.
So this year we hosted 2 on-sites. I'm really big into community service, and I have a big passion for education and like a long-term investment in terms of diversity in engineering and just building the talent pool. So for me, the 2 most important rewarding projects I've ever worked on pretty much in my career would be a lunch and learn I hosted for middle and high school teachers, computer science teachers from the Department of Education. So we had like 10 teachers here, and the goal was to leave them with an industry perspective, give them an idea like how our interviews run, what we look for, what their students should be studying in school. So that seemed really impactful for me. And then I think this was last month, sorry, my time's all over. We hosted an on-site for Black Girls Code. So I worked with a lot of engineers, some of which are in this room, and we did an Arduino workshop with car robotics. So basically they had to use Arduinos to sort of navigate around lights, reflectors, and travel on course tracks. So I think we had 30 girls come. So those things to me are hands down the most important projects that I work on.
I'm glad you shared both of those. Thank you. Like I told you on the phone, I'm obsessed with Black Girls Code, and the fact that you got to work with teachers, that is amazing. Yeah. And for you, Jisha?
Oh man, how can I follow these? These are amazing.
Or you could also speak to something exciting that you would like to work on here while you're here, since you just got here as well.
Yeah, sure. I would say I'm gonna cheat and say something I'm actually working on. So when I came here, Previews was actually starting to undertake this really large design project where they're revamping kind of the surface of Previews. And it was an incredible, it was really fortunate for me because it was an incredible learning experience. The design team here is unparalleled to any design team I've worked on previously. So they, were teaching me a lot about what is a design system exercise? How do you go about rebuilding a surface like that from the ground up? And that has been really exciting to see go from really early stage idea to now we're in the phases of implementing, some of the back end stuff, and some of the design aesthetics will be changed over the next couple of months. So watching that over the last couple months that I've been here has been personally very rewarding.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you mentioned, Mel, the fear that people have of failure and how creating a culture of kindness helps to foster that vulnerability that it takes in order to risk and in order to expand and grow and have an amazing organization. I want to talk about the prospect of failing forward, which is the idea of not getting stuck in failure or in the fear of failure, but in knowing that you can leap from your failure and learn lessons that take you further. And so, Mel, if you could talk about an experience where failure for you was something that you actually learned from and were able to take to another place.
Sure. So I've had a lot of little failures at Dropbox, but I'll talk about my biggest one. It was, yes, it's at my previous company, the building material supplier that I mentioned earlier. I was tasked with basically running from start to finish. We wanted to get a booth at a trade show called Autodesk University to showcase our new software application. And I was like 23 years old, and I'm like, I got this. I'm gonna have my name all over it. It's gonna be start to finish me. Kind of just this like very self-indulgent. And I ended up going, I think it was $35,000 or $40,000 over budget. And I had a conversation with the CEO of my company, and he basically was like, how did you let this happen? Like, how did you not budget better? And it taught me so much, I think, about managing up and about, he trusted me a lot to get this done, but he also trusted me to speak up and say when I needed resources and when I needed help. And it's kind of this idea of like collaboration. Like, what was I thinking? Not trying to get more like perspective from people who had done this before or something. So for me, it was really disappointing. It was a really big learning experience for me, but it taught me to just speak up and tell people what I want and what I need.
So one of the things that I was tasked with early on was to come up with like a service that we could use to help our customers adopt the product better. Coming from a pretty strong consulting background, I said, oh, that's easy. Let's come up with an innovation workshop methodology. And let's take it further and use human-centered design. And let's come up with a huge plan and let me present it to the team, and it's gonna be taken in really well. Everybody's gonna be, yes, we're gonna do this going forth with our customers. And it didn't work out that way at all. So when I presented it to the team, I saw a lot of question marks on their faces. People were like, I don't know how I'm going to incorporate this into my customer engagements. Like, this is too high in the sky, just too designy. So it flopped. It didn't end up being a service at all. But and then I realized now in hindsight, stuff like that really takes a lot of practice to do well. It's something that I knew how to do. But I didn't think that, in the interest of time, we needed to come up with something quick and scrappy. So in hindsight, I probably would have just taken out certain elements of it and kind of made it a little more tangible. So instead of let's do this, huge commitment needed workshop offsite, with like all this set up, how about we just have a conversation during a lunch and learn? And instead of pulling out a notebook, and me taking notes and doing interviews, how about we just talk? And I start writing down things on Post-its and then putting them kind of like casually off to the side and organizing them as we talk. Had I done that instead of come up with this huge methodology, I think it would have been better received. So I definitely learned from that.
I think that's a helpful lesson, right? And for you, Jisha?
I was going to say, you guys passed the interview now. So I think mine was a while ago. I think my failure was I tried to start a company after college, and it wasn't like a fast failure. It was a slow trickle of a failure, and it was one with my best friend of probably 10 years at that time, and that failure was pretty profound for me because I think, when you're younger, you hear all of these like really idealistic stories of people starting companies and how amazing it all is. And, thankfully, I think the tech industry has started to talk about the significance of failures in that story. But when you're young and you're kind of discovering that on your own, it can be pretty demoralizing and eats at your own kind of sense of self. And what I learned from that experience really has been, one, like index yourself towards what you're learning, not necessarily like, the key deliverables as a professional. Like it helps you kind of, there's this term like optimal behaviorism. It's like it helps you like put your best foot forward no matter how bad the problem is, and you kind of try and get what you can learn from that situation as you go through it, even if it is potentially failing. I think that was one of my more significant failures, and it's helped me kind of reframe my perspective for everything else since.
That's awesome. And if someone is watching, Jisha, or here in the room, and the fear of failure is holding them back from expressing their ideas in, collaborative groups, or, what would your advice for them be?
Oh man, we were talking about how we're all pretty like anxious prone people. I don't know, I think one of the things that's helped me, and I don't know if this will help anyone else, but it helps me to like play out worst case scenario. Like what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, and if you really kind of index that in terms of, okay, really like death is probably the worst thing. Everything else short of that can really like, it helps you frame like the risks that you take and like, how you have the conversations that will be fear inducing. When you play out that worst case scenario, it's never really as bad as you think it is, and then it helps you kind of take the first step forward to start charting that territory to like overcome it.
That sounds pretty awesome. I am always reluctant when I think about the question, like people ask me, well, what is it like to be a woman doing, or what is it like to be a Black person doing, because I don't have any other experience with it, but I'm gonna ask it. Can you each speak to what it's like to be a woman at Dropbox, at a tech company? Jisha?
Oh, you're gonna have to give me a minute with that one question.
Okay. Eliza?
Okay, so I am female-bodied, but I do think that I probably present myself more masculine-centered. So I have like I don't want to say woman as much as someone who's gender non-conforming. Dropbox is the first time that I've actually worn my hair short. Throughout my career, it's always been long. So as a woman with long hair and presenting myself in a feminine way, people definitely treat you a little bit differently. Now, not presenting in that way, it's a whole new world for me. So not that I worry about how it might impact how people work with me, but it's definitely something I think about more than I used to. So being yourself is a great release, and I feel much more freedom to be who I am and all that great stuff, but some of those fears definitely bubble up a little more than I'd like to, so I need to work on that. Because quite frankly, working here at Dropbox, it's never been an issue for me personally. So,
can you share with us what that shift was with you? You said that it felt different, like when you were more female presenting person. Yeah, what was that?
I mean, and I had different roles throughout my career, so I think that probably had something to do with it. I started off more product-oriented before coming to Dropbox, and I continued that for a bit. And now I'm much more aligned, with revenue and sales and customers and the post-sale side. That requires a lot of juggling multiple roles. So it's not just technical support, although that's something that I definitely consider my bread and butter, but also building great relationships with the customer, nurturing the account, all that good stuff. And I have to recognize that the way that you present yourself is important. So, while at Dropbox I'm very casual and I dress like crap a lot, I don't take that for granted. So when I, walk into a customer meeting, I do feel like I have to present myself much more professionally so that it does not act as a distraction. That was never the case otherwise. I definitely use it to my advantage actually to present myself more female. But yeah, I mean, it's affected. So now, like, the content of my work, the quality is so much more important to me, even though it always has been, but it's something that I hone in on even more. And I think that's just the general fear, being judged. But, Dropbox has been incredibly supportive, so.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
It's funny you say that about just dressing. My mom kept asking me what I was going to wear for this, and like my gut reaction was Mom, like no one at Dropbox cares what you wear. They're so much more interested in like what you have to offer and your brains and your talent. Coming from a construction building material culture, and especially in New York City, you know, people I think in this city are very focused on sort of what you're wearing and how you present yourself. New York City is a very like suit type city. So when I came to Dropbox, it was literally the first place I'd ever worked where I felt like people didn't judge me based on the way I looked or my age. You know, I just remember some really bad experiences at previous companies, just people in management making comments to me, you know, just very, very detrimental attitudes, and no one at Dropbox would stand for that. We stick up for each other. Everyone's treated the same here, and yeah, this was the first place where I didn't feel judged on my physical appearance in my life.
True.
That's so wonderful to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And for you, Jisha?
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by the women who work at Dropbox. And I think, you know, one of the things that I found kind of unique about the culture here has been the amount of energy that women in more senior positions invest in women in kind of earlier stages in their career. And it's almost like to a degree of like, why are you investing so much of your energy on this? And they just deeply care, and to a point where they almost, you know, they're investing in, they know things about you that you would typically never share. And they like want to foster the most authentic version of yourself. And I think that has been kind of pretty remarkable, a unique trait of women at Dropbox. And it's made me kind of, I don't know, I don't have to, I can just be a woman at Dropbox and, you know, learn from other women at Dropbox. It doesn't have to be, you know, something that I have to overcome necessarily or like make excuses for. I can just embrace my own perspective and watch others who have done well doing so.
That's incredible, because wanting to foster the most authentic version of yourself is what we want everyone to be aspiring to, and all of us to aspiring to in every aspect of our lives. So yeah. We have a question from the live stream. The live stream, first of all, is very much enjoying all three of you and learning a lot from the three of you and your experiences. And someone wants to know, did you find any trouble integrating with Dropbox culture when you first joined?
I remember, story time, I remember when I first met my boss, he didn't shake my hand, he didn't, you know, say hello politely like I would have expected. He came up to me and just gave me this huge bear hug, this boom, and I have to admit, being a New Yorker, you know, unless there's a reason that you should touch me, thou shalt not touch me, right? So I probably looked really mortified, but that was really jarring to me. And when I looked over my colleague at the time, she said something like, oh, it's just a Dropboxy thing. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was my introduction to Dropbox. And I thought, wow, you know, this would be really easy, but it was actually really difficult for me to do, to open myself up in that way, in a very personal way. And it took me a good year before I started feeling really comfortable. In fact, I didn't really start the Pridebox chapter until a year into Dropbox. I was so busy trying to figure out what Dropbox is and how to use the product and all that good stuff, which is great, but, you know, integrating myself really didn't really start until at least 6 months in. And that took a lot of work. For me personally, as an introvert who does not like to be touched so spontaneously, and a New Yorker, that was, you know, something for me as a challenge. But after I opened myself up, it got to be a lot easier. And I really, really value that now.
I remember after my interview coming out and thinking, I literally have no idea how that went, because everyone was just so nice. But I mean, the culture that I came from was like a 180 from Dropbox. In any company I'd ever worked for, I had never heard the word diversity used in terms of you know, recruiting and in the work pool. And I think I lacked a lot of confidence when I came to Dropbox. Like, I came here and I saw people just moving really fast and trying things out, and I don't know if I had the most confidence in myself to kind of like jump in the way I saw everyone doing it. I was really suspicious. I came in and I wanted to know what time work started, like when I could take my break, like when I could do those things. And people were just like, I don't speak that language. Like, you know what you want. And I think the biggest difference is there's just so much trust here. There's so much trust that you're gonna do what you say, that you're gonna get your work done, and then people are gonna like give you the tools you need. So I think it was, just like a lack of self-confidence, and just Dropbox is on the forefront of so many things. Like I said, I'd never heard about diversity. I had never had a performance review in my life. I had never had anyone even mention a personal growth plan to me. So it was like almost overwhelming to come to Dropbox and to see how much support was being given, and I felt like cheated from my last company. I'm like, why doesn't everyone do this?
So now do you feel now like that you are a part of that culture, that you are someone who is comfortable with being supported in all of those pillars?
I think so, and the reason is that when you fail at Dropbox, people are very forgiving and understanding, and we see it as progress even when you're failing. So I think when you take a lot of the consequences and the fear away, people are a lot more open. They're less risk adverse. And they're just like more open to trying new things, and builds confidence.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's give a round of applause to our incredible panel. We've got Jisha Jacob, Eliza Rhee, and Mel